My feeling about being born and raised in Houston, my feeling about showing in actually five different venues in total is, I'm sorry there couldn't be more. Because Houston itself is a city of no zoning, and though that may be problematic for people involved in property ownership issues, I believe that the zoning of thoughts and ideas should be free everywhere. Well, with each place, it seems to be that the curators and the directors that chose the works for their particular venue had a lot to say in how I'm presented. And in the Blaffer, you're having a mixture. So here you have individual works and also collaborative works. We're standing in the Funk and Wag from A to Z, which is a personal work, totally dedicated to how I could stimulate and compel my imagination to be reborn. Whereas in other works like the Gala Committee or Operation Pay Dirt, they are totally intentionally not going to be my work in the end. What got me interested in being an artist is not knowing what being an artist might be. So being an artist means having an opportunity to constantly become one. And that entails researching, as I have described in the past, to destroy my preconceived notions. It's my version of an encyclopedia. It is all 25 volumes, and it's comprised of 524 hand-cut, hand-glued images as collages. So these are not prints, these are collages out of every image that was excised from a 1953 to 56 encyclopedia called the Funk and Wagnalls Universal Standard Encyclopedia. I only used images from each volume, so these all come out of volume 16, 17, you see. So they're volume-specific inventions. When you think about the images and how they're entrapped or connected with the captions and their time, these books were destined to no longer be useful. In other words, they're dead. And they were in libraries. You could see them in used bookstores or most likely at secondhand bookstores. I think being a conceptual artist, it means you're driven by the idea. And therefore, it opens up a wide range of territory to do public work if necessary. I described it in private work and personal work if it comes from a dream. It opens up that possibility where you can be like a Malcolm XXX by any material means, concept necessary. And so it's not about balance, in fact. It's not about it at all. It's about creating a sense of constant insecurity about how you have to apply your conceptual rigor to make something worthy and meaningful in the limited time you have. You know, there's a lot of propaganda out there that would have a tendency to describe me as an ecological artist or environmental artist. When in truth, if you know my work and the full body of the work that cannot be represented in Rematch, then you might discover that only 4 or 5 projects take on this very, very responsible idea of ecological or environmental effort, or social practice for that matter. And so I'm very selective about the ones that have come up. Many come up and many concepts come up, but only few have the poetry behind them that demands the pragmatism and perseverance to execute them. And you have to reject that. Revival Field came after I'd finished my first museum exhibition in 1989 at the Smithsonian's Hirshhorn Museum. And it became with an inquiry into my very being, like your internal voice that would say, what do you like best, man? You know, and I said, well, I love researching and making things with my hands. The internal voice said, okay, that's great, then stop, which I did immediately, and proceeded not to do work for months upon end. And I began to roam again in the world to try to discover something. And it was not so, looking at my career or any of these notions. I was looking for ideas that would pull me in again. That's where Revival Field came, where there was an article about plants having this miraculous power to transform toxic earth. That led to the research that showed there's not that many plants that can do this. And if you believe in this concept and eventually find them, then you must have incredible responsibility and pragmatism, because what you're engaging in is this principle of hope or belief and how it has to meld with science. And so therefore it's not an easy task, and it commands even more rigor, because it's not just about you anymore, my personal vision or my message. It's about how things affect our ecology, which includes everybody else. At the time of Revival Field, the issue of collaboration, which was being practiced by other artists amongst other artists, had been within art history done way before. That's not unusual. In this case, it was a collaboration with scientists, but in a very different way. This was a case where it's an opportunity whereby creating the replicated field test that was necessary, we were able to create a technology together. We were able to create science out of an art project that had been transformed to meet the criteria of a replicated field test. So it's almost like how you can become partners in the progress of thought and information. The Gala Committee required a unique collaboration with writers and producers of a television series called Melrose Place. So our team was all these students from Georgia as well as CalArts. It was called Gala, standing for Georgia, Los Angeles, and artists from Houston, from Kansas City, from Los Angeles, collaborating with the writers and producers of a television show. And we're never paid by the production. We remained independent, and we also never put our name on it. We're never thanked, and we're never in the credits, because we wanted complete creative relationships with all. After we did the work, made the work, put it on the show, we also then took it out and had the exhibition in the museum, had them film in the museum, and after that took it out of that context and sold it at an auction to raise money for women's educational venues in Los Angeles and Georgia, because that is the target audience. In the Name of the Place is a true collaborative project, and I'm proud to be a member, and that's all there is to it. So I'm glad it's conveyed here as one of my operations that I was part of. It was about opening up a territory that had been entrapped by commercialism for 50 years. So it was an experiment. And to this day, people talk about product placement, like if it's the particular brand of soft drink or beer, and that's a big deal, or their poster of their show or their images. We were talking about the placement of ideas that went beyond the character, yet was sympathetic to the character. The safe house door was on a street in the 8th Ward of New Orleans. It was formerly part of the house. And we took a house in a neighborhood that we had already tested to be very high, had very high levels of lead in the soil and in the home. In fact, that door came from a house where 3 children had come out of it severely damaged by lead poisoning. So to transform it into something that was not only safe, but also could hold the drawings that were started in New Orleans became very important. This is an artifact of Operation Pay Dirt. As part of it becomes this iconic artifact if you think about what it means. I'm not so enamored by this idea of being there as an artist changing things, because it's too much power. I think art is about providing options that don't exist. So I like to describe projects that are involved this way as catalytic structures that identify or create a place for ideas, languages, and actions to form. In the case of Operation Pay Dirt, many times, and any of these other projects that are conveyed here, they say, well, yes, I might have been the instigator, but they're worthless without the collaboration and the voices of others. They become nothing, and they become an idea. But I'm involved with what I like to call reality therapy. I like to set up conditions where they may have survival and have a chance to exercise their full potential. An Operation Pay Dirt is a response to going to a place like New Orleans after Katrina to help as a person. Then discovering that something was there even before the storm, so devastating that it was affecting the childhood population, their mentality, and their future. It was childhood lead poisoning in 50% of the inner city childhood population, without a single dollar at the time, I was told, to support that change. So funded Pay Dirt, Operation Pay Dirt, that has this kind of monetary wing, is to say, well, we might not have that much money, or any money, if you say, then we'll have to make it. And it's made in the form of bills, the hand-drawn funds, that will then be, we hope, exchanged and in cooperation and collaboration with coalitions who have been changing things all over the country to begin a new support for that. So this 100% preventable childhood lead poisoning condition can finally be realized. Well, the first thing is any kind of playfulness or humor is taken seriously. That it's nothing is gratuitous. Though I'd like to be more that way, maybe in another 40 years later, maybe, but not right now. I use humor in work sometimes because it may be the only avenue to discuss some of the most terrifying and troubling things in our times. We've learned the great masters are not the philosophers or the politicians, but comedians that have a direct link with human consciousness and needs, and are able to speak of things that we should not speak of. And there's constant, as we know, there's constant indication of its need. And obviously now, constant horrific consequences of human expression under threat.